This is Scott Richmond.
And Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. All right, Arnie, our first show of 19.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Good to see you. It's good to be here. It's good to be talking to our listeners. Have you made a New Year's resolution like everybody else under the sun or not?
I have.
And what is your resolution?
My resolution is to eat whole foods and to limit my alcohol intake throughout the year.
To what? How many gallons? That's a hard one.
Liters.
So I have a Donald Trump-esque New Year's resolution.
Well, you broke the first rule, which is mentioning him by name. Okay, but go.
I have a So instead of focusing on what's wrong with me, I'm going to follow the Trump model and focus on the things that I think are wrong about everybody else. You know, every New Year's resolution is usually about yourself, right? I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to, reorganize.
Right.
So why focus on the things wrong with me? I'd rather just figure out what's wrong with other people and focus on that.
We'll start. Tell us what's wrong with me.
No, it's not everybody, but just the people that are out there.
So where are you going to start?
Rather than inwardly focus, I'm going to focus outwardly. Well, now that we have the government shutdown, I'm focused on who. I'm focused on 45. But today on the show,
yes,
we have Cris Jensen, who runs our fantastic international airport here, and we're going to talk to him about what's going on with the TSA in our market. Are they calling in sick, or do we have full capacity there? We have over $100 million expansion going on in the airport. We want to hear about that and what's happening in that area. There's 2,700 acres around the airport that they own that can be for other sorts of development. So I think we have a lot of things to talk with Cris about. And I'm always happy when he comes on because there's always something new that's happening in our market. I heard that this year over last year we're up 10%.
10%
in volume, and that's
we're going to surpass.
Substantial. We're going to set 2018 was a record year, and 2019 is going to be another record year in little old Missoula, Montana.
We're so happy to be here, and as we know, they're going to get bigger. They're going to be bigger than the Billings Airport. We know that Bozeman. You said Bozeman is already
the biggest
there.
Airport.
So these guys will be right behind there.
Right, and it's interesting because the size of the airport doesn't necessarily reflect the size of the town that it's in.
That's so true.
Because Bozeman gets so much in the winter because of skiing. They have nonstop flight from New York into Bozeman because of skiing in Big Sky.
My brother's meeting me in a couple of weeks.
And Newark has a lot bigger airport than it should if it was just serving Newark, New Jersey, for example.
That's so true.
So we're going to move from 5 gates to 8 gates here, which is pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward to talk to Cris today.
Me too, Arnie. Great show to kick off the new year with. Back after this with the director of the Missoula County Airport, Cris Jensen. All right, we are back with the director of the Missoula County International Airport, Cris Jensen. Hey, Cris.
Hey, thanks
Cris,
for having me.
good to see you.
Yeah, it's good seeing you guys.
Right off the bat.
All right.
We have a government shutdown.
Yes.
TSA are expected to work and not be paid.
That's correct. Yeah.
Around the country, there are a lot of guys calling in sick, and some are even quitting.
That's true.
What's our situation here? I'm personally interested because I'm going to be flying 3 or 4 times in the next month or two, and I want to know if I have to camp out overnight to get to the airport in order to get through customs.
So I will tell you that our TSA has been very good. So they're all coming to work. We're not experiencing people calling in sick like you're hearing about in other parts of the country. I try to spend a lot of the day in the terminal just talking to them, and they're still doing their job with a smile. Honestly, it sucks. I feel bad for them, and we really want to try to help them and do what we can. And unfortunately, there's not a lot we're allowed to do. But I will tell you that they're all coming to work just like they normally would, and they're doing their job, and they have a great attitude, and we can't, express how much we appreciate that.
Sure.
So the answer to you, Arnie, is you don't need to come to the airport any different than you would before.
How long do you think the optimism and the smiling faces will last?
Yeah, that's the question, right? I mean, at some point, everybody's going to get, you can only live on good attitude for so long. They still have to put food on the table and gas in the tank, and And I don't know the answer to that. We've been talking to their management, for every day, I think, since this.
And their management's not getting paid either.
None of them. Yeah, nobody's getting paid. And we're all doing everything we can to try to help them any way we can help them. But there will be a point in time. I don't know what that point in time is. I hope we never get to it. I hope that this ends soon and we don't have to find out.
And what other disruptions is the shutdown causing for you?
That's probably the biggest one at the moment. If it were to go on for an extended period of time, so we'll say into the month of February, it's possible that the funding of our air traffic control tower could be impacted. It's possible that our FAA grants that we need, obviously we have a new terminal construction project coming up. It's possible that could be impacted as the FAA that's in Helena, the airport district office, approves the grant funding for that project. So there are potentially some other things out there if it goes on.
You brought up the new terminal project.
Mm-hmm.
Tell our listeners what are we improving, and how far in the process
in totality,
are we?
Though, because
we don't. Yeah,
listen,
you get bits and pieces every once in a while.
Sure.
I want the big picture, what we're doing at the airport.
Yeah, so I was going to say, because I spent a lot of time on their website looking at their growth plan, and boy, reading through some of those, the master plan, that's a study in
painful, right?
That's right. But in totality, like what are the big things that are going to be happening with this with the renovation?
So, if you kind of look back in time, the airport, the first piece of the terminal was built in 1948, and we've added to it a whole bunch of times since then, really like 11 different times. And you think about the way aviation has changed. Back then, in 1948, the DC-3 was the airplane we looked at, and we went to some bigger airplanes, but a few a day. Over the course of time, what's changed overall is more people, which has resulted in more airplanes and now bigger airplanes. And so we've just literally maxed out the existing terminal, whether it's HVAC or power or just square footage to handle the passengers. So really what we're talking about is a new facility that is designed post 9/11, which was another challenge that we had.
Right.
And it should be a facility. Our goal is to make it completely intuitive, so you never have to read a single sign to figure out how to navigate through it. It's just intuitive. I go here, I know I go there next. I can see my steps along the way, and the customer experience is one that is pleasant and modern. It has all the things that you would want to have in a terminal in terms of concessions, in terms of Wi-Fi and power and comfortable space to spend your time in, big vistas of the surrounding beauty that we all live in. And so that's kind of the concept.
So, like, just as a for instance, because I think you're talking about like layout and design.
Uh-huh.
So when you walk into more of a modern airport, you literally check in at the self kiosk, and you drop off your luggage, and then behind there is security.
Right.
Is that
yes?
Is that the idea versus to the side of it where it is now?
Yeah, that'll be one of the new things that you'll see in the terminal is that when you check in at a ticket counter, your bag will go right through the counter where it'll get on a belt and go straight through to the TSA. It won't be out in the middle of the lobby. You won't be fighting through passengers to try to drop your bag off or try to figure out where to go. So yes, that is exactly one of the enhancements, the customer experience improvements that you'll see.
Then is the security area larger so that it can accommodate more?
Yeah, so
flow.
We currently have 3 lanes. In the new terminal, it'll be big enough to accommodate up to 6 lanes.
Wow!
And so
double.
So we'll be able to double the size of our current operation. Of course, that's driven by demand, but the demand, we've obviously been growing, so we expect that'll happen. So we'll at least have. Today, we can't do that. We have no ability to.
So like as in, for instance, between the 5 a.m. and 30 a.m. time frame, when there's so many flights, it would expand in capacity.
Yeah, you'd have the ability to go to as many lanes as you need to efficiently move through those passengers. So yes.
And Arnie, I'm getting very specific because we travel through in and out of there so much, but the food and travel stuff is all behind security, right?
So, no, there'll be some pre-security as well. So you'll have probably a smaller offering pre-security. There'll be some kind of grab
like
and
a
go.
Jebediah's.
Yeah, and then post-security you'll have more choices. So
more choices.
Yeah, more choices, and we'll still have a deck, but it'll be a deck that'll be all season. It'll have fireplaces, and you'll have food delivery and beverage delivery on the deck, so you'll be able to sit out there and look out at at Lolo Peak and the valley and the scenery and outside, and an inside bar that'll look out, and a restaurant, and you'll have choices, and you'll have
so you'll be able to get drunk at this airport like at every other airport in America.
That's right.
So is this? I'm assuming this growth is driven in part by increased demand.
Correct.
So what does that look like now? What is the demand in Missoula these days?
Yeah, so, I think the easiest way to quantify it is if we look at 2018, we were up just about 10% in total passengers. The national average, depending on region and size of airport, is somewhere between 3 and 6% annual growth rate. So we're looking at 10% for the entire year. As we look forward into 2019, the first 6 months, we're up about between 35 and 40% more capacity than we had just in 2018, which was, by the way, a record year. The fact that people want to be here in the summertime, maybe not so much in the wintertime, even though we all know in the wintertime it's very beautiful. But and so we do see, summer in particular, a surge in airline service, whether it's, as we talked about, the Atlanta flight or more Chicago or San Francisco, whatever the case may be. And so we do have to integrate that into our daily schedule.
Waiting on the tarmac to leave when you're finally home and you want to get off. And so what's the cause of that, and what's the solution for that?
So part of it is just the facility. There's either not parking positions or there's not a jet bridge to accommodate them. And so that's part of what we're trying to rectify with this new facility is just the ability to handle more aircraft. We're literally, during the summer, 100% maxed out throughout various times of the day, where the building, there's no parking positions left, there's no available seating or square footage to even stand in.
We're like a Michelin 3-star restaurant. We're sold out.
Yeah, true story.
So how long is it going to take for new gates to be added? When are the first new gate going to be available?
Yeah, so I think if anybody's been out there recently, they've seen that the TSA checkpoint has moved from where it was on the west end of the building into the center of the building. And that was done in preparation for the first demolition, which will start next week. And so we'll start knocking down that west end of the building, and as soon as we're done knocking that down, we'll start there'll be the foundation and then the steel, and it'll come out of the ground. And so that first what we're calling the concourse, the 4-gate concourse, will be done in we're saying late 2021. So on the inside of that, it'll have all the new ticket counters. It'll have all the new security, so the room for 6 checkpoint lanes. It'll have all that inline security that Scott was talking about, where the bags will go through the counter behind, where out of sight. It'll have all of the concession space, so the restaurants and the gift shops and all of those things are all part of that.
And how many more gates are we going to have?
So we're going to 8 to start. It's expandable out to 20, so it'll be done by demand. So if we continue to get new flights and we need more space, our design is so that we can easily and as cheaply as possible expand that facility out to 20 gates without a major construction project.
I've been in a lot of towns around the country that are a lot larger than Missoula that don't have 8 gates.
Right.
No. And are they so? That's interesting. So what is, like, by comparison, what does Great Falls have? What does Bozeman have?
So Bozeman had 8. They're actually expanding right now to 12. Wow. I think Great Falls has 4 currently.
And Bozeman uses that mostly in the winter as opposed to us. Because that's the only place you fly in to get down to Big Sky.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it uses some in the summer to go to Yellowstone, but Yellowstone has other places where you can enter the park. You don't have to only go through Bozeman.
You can go through Jackson, right?
Yeah, you can go through Jackson, or you can go into Billings and come in through that way. There's a lot of ways to get to to Glacier National Park.
Or to Yellowstone, right.
Excuse me, Yellowstone.
Let's do a quick ID. Our guest is Cris Jensen. He's the director of the Missoula County International Airport. We're talking all things MSO.
So 2014, did you think that by 2018-19 we're going to need 8 gates here? We could have the volume we were having?
So I would tell you that in 2014, it was probably just starting to dawn on us that we might have a problem. I don't think we ever anticipated that it would get here as fast as it did. We did start to do a terminal area master plan back about that same time frame. And originally, that master plan really just showed kind of a remodeling of the existing facility. But it was also at about that same time we started to realize, hey, that's not going to cut it. We're going to need to be able to build something that we can expand and it's going to grow. The remodel was always was going to be, we wouldn't have a lot of additional gate space. It was just going to be a rework of the existing space we had.
One of the things that I've noticed as a frequent traveler is fares. Mm-hmm. And our fares have been getting a lot better.
Oh, I like hearing that.
I've been looking at a few international trips that I'm making, and flying out of here as opposed to like Seattle is only about $100 or $150 more.
Nice.
So you don't have to. When I first moved here, and even as recently as 7-8 years ago, many people I know, when they flew, they would drive to Spokane.
Right.
And now I don't hear anybody talking about that anymore. So that's a credit to you and what you've been able to do here by attracting, more airlines, more flights, making the prices more competitive, and not having to make those treks.
It's like everything. It kind of goes in cycles, and you'll see it go one way, and then it goes the other way. And I won't be surprised if someday we're having this conversation and you're seeing that they're starting to rebundle the fares.
Or making seats bigger. I just heard that one of the new airlines that Delta's getting, Delta is getting a new Boeing, I think, and the seats are actually going to be
a little larger
for the coach seats.
Let me ask a question. Is it, because I can only relate to what I'm doing personally, but I'm wondering if it's part of a trend. People are splitting the departure and whatever, which airline they go on leaving and what they come back on. Like
they're unbundling. Yeah, they're not.
We're doing our own unbundling because we can.
That's true.
Is that what's happening?
You bet. It absolutely is. You fly one airline in one direction and a different airline in
because there's no benefit to round trip any longer.
No, right. And I think so. The answer is absolutely. And there's nowadays with the internet and all the different travel sites, it's so much easier to do today than it's ever been before. And so you can easily get on there and check pricing directionally. And so the answer is absolutely. People are taking advantage of that today. I personally take advantage of that today.
Yeah, one of the things I just recently discovered, not that I'm promoting any, I have no personal involvement in this company. It's going to be an Alaska thing. No. There's a website called Trip Masters.
Oh, yeah.
That gives you up to 12 legs. It's very difficult to book multiple legs and then get hotels in each of the sites.
Oh, interesting.
They pair it up.
Oh,
so
really?
You can punch in like Missoula to, it's mostly international that you get the benefit. Missoula to Paris, Paris to, Luxembourg to, Beijing. You can go up to 12 legs. I want to be here 3 days, here 4 days, here, 6 days, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you just punch in coach, business class, whatever, and they'll pop up a schedule, multiple airline schedule, and hotels.
Wow.
I was looking at a business class international trip for 10 days. Just looking at 5 days in Copenhagen, 5 days in Berlin. The hotel in Copenhagen was a Radisson, a nice upscale hotel. The hotel in Berlin was Waldorf Astoria. Round trip from Missoula, business class, 10 days of the hotel, and round trip, good connection, $3,000, less than the business class ticket.
That's not bad at all.
Yes, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
Arnie loves to travel.
Well, I love to
deals.
Get something out, a deal. I don't know how they do it, but almost every route that you put in, particularly with business class, the price of the rooms plus the fare, and then you can adjust them up and down. They have different legs that you can put in, or different routing, or if you want to stick with one airline or another. They're always less than the actual ticket if you went.
He's going to look on that. I'm pointing to Cris. He's going to look at that site.
No, I love that kind of stuff.
It's unbelievable. It really is very good. But there's going to be more and more of that because people are trying to do what you're doing.
Right. They're trying to. They have the ability to do all of it. A couple of quick questions.
Sure.
So the hub and spoke concept with airlines, meaning Delta flies into Salt Lake, then pushes you off to L.A. or what have you.
Yep.
Do those airlines, what encourages them to decide to go direct to L.A. from Missoula?
So I think, that's a great question, and it's probably a pretty complex answer. I would say that so what we look at as an airline or as an airport is what we call PDUs, passengers daily each way. And so if we can show that a market such as Missoula, LA, is going to be stimulated by direct service to a level that would support, a nonstop flight, we can take that to the airline. But the airlines will tell you that they would rather carry those passengers over Salt Lake, in the case of Delta, rather than dilute their own market. So they're happy to kind of aggregate us all into that hub and then send us off in different directions. And so it's a tough sell. And LA is an interesting story for us, honestly, because today we have Allegiant, Delta, and United that all fly to L.A. at various times through the year. It's not year-round.
Right.
So United did it during the summer, Delta just did it during the holidays, and Allegiant does it during the summer less than daily. And so that's a good example that you bring up, that we're actually talking to the airlines trying to convince them. And if you talk to Delta about, L.A. specifically, they'll tell you, well, we get those passengers already over Salt Lake. We don't really want to. We're cutting our own throat. We were at 100% capacity in terms of parking, and that was with our expanded parking lot. So we had actually been working hard.
Right.
So we had some construction in front of the terminal that we were working on that was the utilities and
thank goodness for Uber.
Yeah, right. And so, we have some off-airport parking competition that honestly we're pretty happy to have now, because I don't know that we could accommodate 100% of the people if we didn't have that. And so, we're Uber and Lyft and, grandma dropped me off or whatever it might be. But
the hotels.
Yeah, hotel shuttles. It will be that at some point in the future we'll have to go vertical with parking. So you'll see a parking garage.
Yeah.
So
which
that's
makes sense
in the plan.
Yeah.
So let me ask back to parking. So when our number 45 was here a couple of months ago holding his rally,
right? Yeah.
The president holding his rally, parking was people were parking in our neighborhood, Arnie.
Yeah, I know.
What was that? Was there any learning? Did you guys do like a little? Could you believe
we're not inviting him anymore?
Yeah, I think what we learned was that we just assumed that he'd go to Kalispell and parking up there maybe is better.
Butte.
I don't know. Butte would be great. What we learned was, and it's funny because I can tell you a little story. So he went to Bozeman. It was a couple weeks after he was here, and so we were consulting, if you will, with the airport director in Bozeman, and we were talking about parking in particular as our big challenge. And he said, well, we have, I think, 700 parking spaces that we can use for the rally. And Brian Ellisted, who's our deputy director, responded back immediately via email, not even close.
Right.
And then Brian said, well, I think we have 14 acres, beyond that we can probably use if we need to, but I can't imagine that we're going to need that. And Brian responded back right away again, not even close.
Right.
And so we had 34 acres that we filled up, and as you said, then it went all the way down Highway 10, all the way into your neighborhoods, and all over the place.
I think what people would find interesting is all of the logistics that go into that. I think he was on the ground for 25 minutes.
Maybe, it was short.
Boom, boom, out. But all of the pre-planning and then all of the exit planning is incredible. Let me switch for a minute. How do you pay for all this?
Yeah, so that's the real trick.
That's where I was going with.
I always tell everybody, building the terminal's the easy part, paying for it's the hard part. So the answer in our case is we have a number of different streams of funding. A big chunk of it is FAA funding. Let's hope the federal government opens back up so we can actually access those funds.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will get in the neighborhood of, if I have to add up the different pots under the FAA grant program, but it could be $35 to $40 million from the FAA grant program.
Right.
Then we have passenger facility charges. So when you fly, on your ticket, if you look, there's a $4.50 fee that you pay every time you depart from Missoula or from any airport. And so that goes into it. We have some of our own reserves, and then we'll have debt.
What won't you be able to do that you want to do on this cycle around? There's always something that you leave out that you can't get to. It's like building a house or anything. You can't put the pool in right now.
Yeah.
What can't you put in that you want to put in?
So I think our staff, and myself included, we're very operationally minded. So we don't think a lot about the aesthetics of it. Of course, that's going to be important to the public and to our board, and they're going to spend a lot of time looking at and thinking about those things. But we think a lot about, as a staff, we think about, like having 2 baggage carousels on the outbound baggage. We're going to have kind of a consolidated, it's a technical discussion, but basically additional capacity to handle baggage or bag carts or
right, because you don't
things
know how
of that nature.
You don't know how schedules are going to change. You may have 5-6 planes departing within an hour of each other.
And that's what we're experiencing today, and we physically can't handle, the activity. And so we'd like to have kind of redundancy and additional capacity in those types of systems. I don't think in the beginning we'll be able to afford those additional systems. So it'll still be way better than what we have today. But, if we do continue to grow at the rate we're growing, there'll be a point in time where we'll have to go in and put those additional systems in. In terms of
anything else?
I was going to say, in terms of the aesthetics, again, polished concrete would be fine with me, but there's going to be it's going to look and feel like a very nice facility. I think people will be very happy with it.
Like Bozeman.
And what about the technology? I mean, technology continues to change.
Yep.
Is it your responsibility, or is it the local community's responsibility to pay for the new equipment, or the FAA pay for it, or how does that get put in place?
So, it's really on us, I would say. I mean, in terms of technology, we have what we call GIDS, which are Gate Information Display Systems, and FIDS, which are Flight Information Display Systems. And we have, Wi-Fi in the building, and we have all of these integrated systems that the public can use and that we use behind the scenes to process flights. All of that's really on us. And so we're looking at, kind of what would be state of the art now. And so that is in the current budget. Those are those operational type things that I was talking about that we really, as an airport staff, focus on, that make the flights go out on time and make the airline, able to efficiently process the.
And what's the number? Because I was reading, is it the 3 phases in total, somewhere in the $225 million range?
I hope not.
So that was the highs, right? So that was the highs.
So
what is it going to cost?
So the first 4 phases that we're working on. So we just completed phase 1.
Okay.
So that was the relocation of the TSA checkpoint.
Got it.
The first 4 phases, which will be that September, or we'll say September of 2021. So late summer 2021 is $67 million.
Oh.
Then the next piece of it will be $111 million. And that's really where we think we're...
So sub $200 million.
Yeah, no, 111 is right now kind of our...
So 67
cap.
Plus 111.
No.
In total.
67
right.
plus... Yeah. Plus another, whatever the difference is. $111 million total.
Are we in need of another runway?
That's not bad.
So no, so that's the one good news thing in terms of capacity for us. So we have a runway in terms of length and width and structural capacity to support aircraft is big enough to handle everything up to, we had Air Force One, which was a 747. But we can handle the biggest aircraft other than the Airbus A380 that is in the industry today. So in terms of the length and in terms of the...
That's okay.
In terms of the ability to grow the airport, we have plenty of capacity.
And is there, just for my purposes, is there a new de-icing facility going to be going in, or are we doing it the same way we've been doing it in the past?
So the answer is yes. And our plan is to double the de-icing capacity of what we have today.
Yeah, that's great. Well, more flights.
Well, because weather's also changing. I mean, we have a lot more days where it's required than it has been in the past.
We're jumping around a lot, but Cris, there's never enough time with you. I think what we do is we always fill up an hour.
Yeah, right.
Back to kind of the shutdown of the government. How is that impacting air traffic control and that whole?
Yeah, so it hasn't yet. Their funding for our tower is in place into the month of February. I can't remember the exact day in February. There is the possibility, if this were to extend, that they would then also be, going to work without getting a paycheck at some point. And so we're hopeful that it's all over with by then. But if it were to continue on, it could have the potential to
disrupt.
our air traffic.
As the director of the airport, do you find yourself, because we're still a small enough town or a small enough market, where do you find yourself doing pretty much every job when you need to? Like, other than TSA stuff and air traffic control.
Yeah.
Like, if you had to go grab bags off of something to move things forward, you do that, right?
My shoulder still hurts today. I'm not making this up. My shoulder still hurts today from throwing bags last week. So the answer is yes, and that's the best part of my job, honestly, is that I don't just sit in an office and push paper from one side of the desk to the other. I get to go out and interact with the public, and if they're having a good day, I get to hear about it. If they're having a bad day, I get to hear about it, and that's great. I appreciate it.
Well, this is not like JFK where you're running a city, basically.
Right.
You're a city manager, not an airport manager.
Yeah,
a place like that.
We all in our job descriptions have other duties as assigned, and I have my favorite story about our finance manager is her having to flush toilets behind people when we had a water line break. And a true story, and she did it with a smile. That's just the way our staff works. They all know that we have to do whatever we have to do to take care of our customers. And
some of us that live in the neighborhood of where the airport is fantasize, at least I will say from my own perspective, that there'll be restaurants and other amenities at the airport that I could take advantage of and not have to go to Reserve Street.
Yeah,
because we live up on Butler Creek. So is that? I mean,
it's possible. So we're always looking for business opportunities. We have a business development manager who's always a very creative guy, and he always likes to kind of come up with interesting and new ways to, number one, generate revenue for the airport and diversify our revenue streams, but also kind of make us a hub for, we talked about hubs earlier, but bring people
your community
bring our community to their airport. It's not my airport. They're nice enough to let me work there.
Right.
But we really do want them to come out. And so I hope the answer, in the short term, we're not there. But in the long term, I hope the answer to that question is yes, we're going to have some other stuff.
Well, it used to be exciting right before the era of TSA, because all the airports were building all those concessions out front so that people waiting for flights and all that. And in bigger airports, they still have some of the concessions out front because they have a lot of people, that are picking up flights. But, we don't have that situation here yet.
But, you remember pre-9/11, you go to an airport and you could meet with somebody.
Right.
And you would just meet at the airport.
Yep.
And now you don't want to.
Yep. That's true.
Right? So, but hopefully we get back to that where it's easier to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the Kansas City airport, you probably know this, built a whole brand new airport, I think in the 70s or 80s, where you drove right up to the gates that you were flying out of. They're now building a brand new, completely new airport.
Yep.
Right.
They can't even modify this.
Yep, true story. That is 100% true.
It's unbelievable. They can't even modify it.
Is that like a disaster in the modern airport era?
Yeah.
Well, it was they were a victim
not
of
their own making, but
it was just a victim of circumstance given 9/11 and everything. Everything changed, and their facility couldn't physically be changed to make it work.
When it was working, it was fantastic.
Oh yeah, it probably would have been the best customer experience you could have.
I want to shift the gear again. Aircraft, because I love talking about aircraft with you. Are there any developments happening on the aircraft side that'll improve the experience of flying? Like those RJs, the regional jets.
Yeah.
They're really cramped, right?
Yes.
But they're great. They get you from point A to point B. It's wonderful. What are you seeing coming down the line?
So I think for Missoula, what we're seeing is it won't be long where there will be zero of the what I call regional jets. The RJs, which would be in my mind, the flying culvert. You'll start to see regional jets, which is we're still using the term, go to more of what we now have in some of our markets, which is an Embraer aircraft that feels like a mainline aircraft.
Got it.
It's not.
No, that's okay.
It's not going to be an experience like that's tight, cramped, kind of crawl to your seat type of an experience. It's going to feel no different than a 737 or
Got it.
A big airplane.
It just may be 2 and 2.
Yeah, exactly right. It may be 2 and 2. So I think you're going to see that. I think that you'll see in our market also a lot more mainline-sized aircraft. So Boeing 737. We actually had an opportunity to have the 757 in our market on the Atlanta flight.
Right.
2 years ago, we actually had to tell them no. Just because our facility wouldn't accommodate them. So we talk about the growth challenges. That was one of them where we wanted to
But you'll be able to with the
new terminal, no problem at all. We'll be able to handle that. So you'll see those types.
What's the biggest commercial jet passenger commercial jet
today
that you can accept?
Today, probably the 737, 800, or 900 is about the max in terms of what our facility will accommodate.
Got it.
The runway can handle,
everything,
but the facility, the terminal, cannot.
And then after the expansion?
After the expansion, it'll be built to handle even up to a mainline-sized aircraft, 767 or 787 or something like that.
Plus, what I mentioned earlier, Delta is launching on the 31st of January the new A2, I think it's called A220.
Yep, that's right.
Which is a 109-seat plane that has the wider, more 2-inch wider coach seats, and they're going to have 12 first-class seats, 15 in extra legroom economy, and then 82 that are going to be bigger than what they currently now have.
Wow.
And those will probably start coming into the market.
That's an Airbus product?
Yeah, Airbus 220. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
I saw a piece on TV about it. It looked the news that any seat was bigger rather than smaller caught my attention, because that's not, and that may be some of the pushback that's going to happen. They're going to say, look, we just can't cram people in there.
Let's take a quick break. Our guest is Cris Jensen, the director of the Missoula County International Airport. He's our guest for the full hour. Back after this. All right, we are back with the director of the Missoula County International Airport, Cris Jensen.
It already has changed considerably for those people that have been out there recently. I'm sure they've noticed. So security is no longer on the west end of the building where it used to be. It's now right in the heart of the building, right where the big bear used to be.
If you're not checking luggage, if you're already teed up, you have your boarding pass, maybe a little bit shorter.
Yeah, definitely shorter. If you're not checking a bag and you're checked in online and you're good to go, yeah, you can definitely be there in less than 90 minutes.
You have one of the things we didn't talk about. I really like our website for our airport. It keeps you updated on arrivals and departures and flights, all that. Why don't you talk about the website and tell our listeners how to reach it?
Keep track.
You bet. So flymissoula.com is our web address, and right on the very front page, the very first thing you'll see will be arrivals and departures. So you'll be able to tell if you're meeting somebody or if you're scheduled to fly out, what the schedule is of your flight. We're actually getting ready to do an upgrade to our website, and so you'll see that coming in the not too distant future. But those things that you described will continue to be a part of the website. We're gonna add a little content and modernize it a little bit, make it look a little prettier.
With moving away from the RJs to more substantial equipment, are we less likely to have airport diversions to other airports in the winter? I mean, I've only had that happen twice in 20 years. So I've been lucky.
You've been lucky.
But some people, have experienced more of that.
So I would tell you that your chances of having a weather-impacted flight go down if you're on a mainline aircraft. So United versus United Express, Delta versus Delta Connection, American mainline, whatever. So the answer is I think yes. I can't tell you what the percentage difference would be. But typically the smaller flights are the ones that are the first to be canceled. If you're at a hub and they can only get so many airplanes in or out, they're going to pick the bigger airplanes with more passengers because there's less people to accommodate on the smaller flights. So yeah, I think the answer is that there is some benefit to the bigger aircraft.
Right, and that work also on flights leaving here and inversions and that will have a better chance of getting out of here?
Yeah, it's probably less noticeable in Missoula on the outbound side. Typically, we don't have the stress in our system here locally that you might have in a major hub airport where they're metering the flow of aircraft into or out of it, and so. It's possible that because of the traffic at the hub, it affects the departure out of Missoula. But generally speaking, it's going to be more on the other end.
Actually, related question to that: is there any developments in the hub and spoke? Meaning, are there any new hubs that are coming down the pike that would impact us? Like, is Seattle going to be more? I mean, Seattle's Alaska, Denver's United.
Well, and as they change,
Dallas
for example, Alaska now has nonstop flights from Seattle to Washington, D.C., and so often when I'm flying to D.C., I fly to Seattle, and then a nonstop flight, it gets you there faster.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. And so, Seattle is in a big growth mode as well right now, and so there's all sorts of new opportunities. Alaska Airlines bought Virgin America, and that opened up a lot of the coast-to-coast traffic, and so there are, I'm an Alaska flyer. I try to use them whenever I can. And so to D.C. is a good example, as Arnie said. It's pretty easy nowadays, even though it feels a little weird to go west to go east, but at the end of the day, the times work really well. And so I would say, all of the hubs are in growth mode, actually. They've changed the model now for airports like Missoula, where we would actually have to fund it all. And the facility that we would have to build to accommodate the customs operation would be, multi-million dollars, and then we'd have to pay another, looks like about $300,000 a year. And so we just haven't been able to make it pencil. We've been working, we've talked with Washington Corp and other companies locally that would be logical users of it. It would never be commercial service size customs. So, even in Great Falls has customs, or Kalispell, they have customs. They can only handle corporate jets today. They're not set up. Yeah, so or any smaller aircraft, I guess doesn't have to be corporate, but private. And it's not going to be a commercial airline flying from Vancouver.
It's not like Air Canada that's coming in.
Right.
Come back sooner, okay?
I look forward to it.
All right. Arnie, I'll see you next week.
Take care, Scott.
Thank you for listening to What Do You Know?
I can't wait for the next show, Scott.
I'm excited too, Arnie. If you'd like to suggest a guest, send me an email at scottrichmond@townsquaremedia.com. We'll see you next week. And thanks for listening to Newstalk KGVO.